the director of the New York Songwriters Circle, and with me here today is Mark Eichner, who is president of 785 Records, and also president of the publishing, and Denise Rich Songs. And we have Mark on board because the main reason he is a believer in old school values, which is what the Songwriter Circle is about. He loves the purity, the truth of what comes from a great song. So first I'd like to ask you, Mark, a little bit, just tell us a little bit about how you came into the business and your love for music.
Oh, wow.
In a little nutshell.
Well, for me, to make it really quick, I was one of those lucky people who, very fortunate, who was second generation. And so I grew up in the business, and my dad was a great record man in the business. So I was able to be very fortunate, grow up in this wonderful business and learn from some of the greatest record people. Mm-hmm. And that's really where I learned my love of songs and artistry is really from my dad.
So your dad was also of the same old school, songs,
Yeah, it's all about great artistry and great songs, and that's really what I was taught, and I think that's what all great music people understand, and I think it will always be that way. It once was, it will be. Mm-hmm. It's always been about great songs and great artistry, and I think that's what really
makes the world.
Yeah, that's the difference, that's the magic.
Yeah.
So for me, I started out as a child being around some great recordings. I remember going as a kid seeing Springsteen in the beginning. I was there when they part of seeing them record Born to Run. I remember when my parents brought me to Sly and the Family Stones as a kid, and my brother and I, we were maybe 10, going to Madison Square Garden in awe.
You were like 10?
And, oh yeah.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine that crowd.
Oh man, from meeting David Cassidy when we were all kids and just little kids in the late 60s, early 70s, that was just huge, to Tiny Tim, to being around, again, Billy Joel from the beginning, Aerosmith, Bruce, of course, who was just such a big person to me, Journey.
And these are bands your dad signed? Or
he signed or worked with, because, he was the head of A&R Columbia for, 18 years. From their great years, from the early 70s to the early 90s. So for me it was just wonderful, and then I always wanted to be in the business, and I remember driving in the car with my father and him telling us, my brother and I, what's the hook of that song? And we would have to tell him what the hook of the song was, or as I got a little older in my teenage years, he'd bring home acetates for me to listen to. And for everybody who doesn't know what acetates are,
I don't know what an acetate.
When we were younger in the business, they used to make what's called vinyl. And we're showing our age. I remember that.
When I was 3.
Yes. And acetates were basically, that was a really cool thing. I remember as a kid going to the actual pressing plants and seeing actually how they were made. And kind of in a funny way, which is kind of like a black tube of toothpaste being squished into these metal plates, these copper plates that would come together, and they would make the album, and they would trim it off. It would go down, cool down sticker into the sleeve and wrapped and down the line. It was really kind of cool.
I miss those days.
Yes, but the acetates were a really cool thing, because you basically, when you were in a mastering session, when you would leave, you left with an acetate, and that was your reference copy. What it was called, an acetate, and it was a single cut on each side. So you had 2 acetates: your A side, again, vinyl albums, and B side. Those are things we don't think about today. Even thinking about sequencing a project today, as running the label, when we're sequencing a band, when I started in the business, you were still thinking about A and B sides.
Absolutely.
Now you're thinking of sequencing in a different order. You're thinking from beginning to end because of a CD, or you hope that people download a whole album, and it's the same thing. So it's
there are no more B-sides?
Well, you'll make, when we record, I'm again old school, as you said, Tina, and our whole mantra is old school values and new school vision, and again it goes to songs and artistry, but also goes to a lot of the great things. So we do like to record extra songs, B tracks. And then what we'll use those for, is if we need them, a lot of, because today with the internet and there's so much stuff, and that's a wonderful thing that kids could, and hopefully grown-ups as well, could rediscover music or discover new music through the internet. And I think the internet's a wonderful thing. Just download your stuff legally. That's the only thing we ask for.
Get that on camera. Download legally.
But otherwise, I think it's a wonderful tool that people could discover music.
And when you're listening to a song or a band, or when people submit you music, what is the very first thing that resonates with you? If you were telling me this is my gut reaction to something, what would that be in a song? What would that be?
Wow. It's hard to say as far as listening to the song itself or the artist.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a good point. That's a very good point.
I have to wear two hats.
Yeah.
And it depends on what I'm listening for. If I'm listening as a publisher, I'm not really caring about the way the song is, the presentation of the song is. Mm-hmm. Because the song really needs to be based on the song. And the way I like song demos, and I'm sure Tina feels the same way, is that when you're doing a demo for a song, you really want that song to shine. Mm-hmm. It's really about the song, it's not as much about the production. Mm-hmm. You want the song to stand on its own, and let's face it, a great song could just be bare naked, a piano or a guitar and a vocal, and I'm thinking about getting goosebumps. I mean, that's how much songs are important to me. But that's what a great song is. If we sit and listen to a great song, it doesn't matter what it is. A great example of it would be with Dave Grohl with the Foo Fighters. You could listen to Dave's stuff, who I just think is just unbelievable. To me, the unquestionably secret weapon of Nirvana. And he's just such an amazing songwriter, and supposedly such a wonderful person as well. And he really embraces doing covers, and he loves, and again, never talking to him, but just being a fan of his. You could see that he just loves songs, and he does covers, and he embraces things. But my point is that you listen to his band, and they just rock. Yeah. They're just electrifying. Right. But then he could take a song, strip it down, just to a guitar and him, and it will move you like. That to me is a great song.
That's a great song.
It's sure you want that song 3-4 minutes, whatever the time is going to be, unless it's a 30-second commercial or a minute or whatever it might be. But whatever that piece is, you want it to be moving, and you want people to walk away humming it and just being touched by it and moved by it.
Transformed, like a transformation, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great song.
I think song is just, it's the most amazing tool that man could ever have. Yeah. And music, and a song is, the structure.
What would we be without it? I don't know what I would do.
It's the most universal language in the world.
It is.
We could be anywhere. We could be right now here. We could be, in Europe, in Africa, in South America, the North Pole, the South Pole. It doesn't make a difference. Music is moving. A great song. It's like I remember for years ago, going back to how I started. When I started in the business, I worked at RCA for many years as an A&R person, and part of my responsibility, of course, RCA being owned by BMG, was doing a lot of international stuff as well. So I was kind of the liaison for the A&R department in New York with our international brothers and sisters around the world, and some of them are wonderful. And such as Mike McCormick, who's a great head of Universal Publishing in the UK, great record guy. Simon Cowell, of course, was a part of our little thing.
Is that right?
Oh, sure. And Simon was a really, a good old friend.
We all start somewhere.
Yeah, and Simon was a great A&R guy for BMG for a long time as a consultant, and and Chris Cook, and I'm trying to think of other people, Pete and Keith from Deconstruction. Probably a lot of people won't know about some of these companies, but Kate Hyman. It was just it was a lot of fun. It was just real creative. We'd sit around and we'd have these meetings.
Did you find that